Right here, college football countdown to kickoff show powered by Calvi Electric. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, taking you up to Rutgers football, taking you up to about 11:45. Got a packed show. Got to unpack some college football playoff discussion today. Got to preview a little bit of Rutgers Northwestern later on. Also got to talk about Michigan State. Big game of the day in college football. I'm looking forward to that one. Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic is going to join me about 11:15. He'll break it all down for us, go around the Big Ten, talk about other college football storylines as well. Boy, we have a great day in college football on tap for you. I got to say, I am thrilled that we're going to get Michigan State. Jim Harbaugh's biggest problem with Michigan is that he cannot beat Michigan State and Ohio State. Now, granted, he did have a victory over Michigan State the other season, a couple years ago. But that's when Michigan State was terrible, garbage, and they weren't good at all. The one that sticks out is Michigan State pulling off the upset over Michigan. I guess you can call it an upset because it was on the road, where Michigan, all they had to do was punt the ball away, and they would have won the football game. Punt it in the air, out of bounds, game over. Punter drops a snap. Michigan State somehow picks up the football, runs it all the way back, touchdown, game over. See you, Jim Harbaugh. You're not going to the Big Ten championship game this year. Not happening. This year is a little different. I like Michigan. I thought they were a changed team once they got through Notre Dame. I know they lost week 1, but Notre Dame, that looks like a legit loss right now. It really does. When you see what Notre Dame's done this season, undefeated, and that's Michigan's only loss, it was on the road, only by 7. I give the Wolverines a lot of credit. They actually have their quarterback. This is the best quarterback Jim Harbaugh's had in his tenure there. It's Shea Patterson, the transfer from Ole Miss. Today is huge because Michigan has to stay in the top 6. I mean, they're 6 right now. Michigan State is 24th, so you would think Michigan has the clear-cut advantage, even on the road. But when I broke them down, they haven't really beaten anybody that's worth talking about, aside from Wisconsin. They lost to Notre Dame. They beat Western Michigan. They beat them by 46. Come on. SMU, come on. Nebraska, oof. I mean, Rutgers is bad too. Nebraska's really bad too. If you want to talk about the worst teams in the Big Ten, Rutgers and Nebraska. At least Rutgers is a victory. I don't care who it's over. Texas State. They are not winless compared to a rough first year for Scott Frost. And then you look at Michigan the last couple of weeks. On the road at Northwestern, solid program, but you should be beating that team on the road. And they were down 17-0, ended up winning 20-17. So I give them credit for coming back in that game on the road and winning, but too close to call. They beat up on Maryland. Maryland's no good. But then they beat up on Wisconsin last week. And I know it was at home last week, but Wisconsin's a pretty good football team. And I know Wisconsin had a bad loss to BYU back in week 3, but Wisconsin is deservedly so, top 20 program. So when I look at Michigan, they haven't really beaten anybody except Wisconsin, and they lost to Notre Dame. So you could say they split their good games. Now comes the real test for Michigan. On the road at Michigan State, home against Penn State the following week, 2 weeks actually from now. Then they're at Rutgers, and they'll host Indiana. Then, of course, the game at Ohio State. I think out of all the years Jim Harbaugh's been here, since he has a quarterback, and he has a fantastic running back in Karan Higdon, who's turned into an absolute beast. With this squad he has this season, this is the best chance Jim Harbaugh will have at a Big Ten title and possibly the college football playoff. They cannot lose another game. We know this. You cannot go into the playoff with 2 losses. You just can't do it. If they win the next 2 games, they should firmly be top 4. Despite the fact that would give Penn State 3 losses should they beat them at minimum. And for Michigan State, they would have 3 losses as well, but they would be facing these teams while they're ranked. These are division wins. Michigan must win out and get to Ohio State at 10-1. Now, best case scenario for Michigan to clinch a playoff berth, you win out, and Ohio State remains undefeated until you beat them on November 24th. That'll put Michigan in the Big Ten title game. A one-loss Ohio State team will drop from 2 to maybe 6 at that point. And then when we talk about the playoff, then you could be making the argument for 2 Big Ten teams. Should Michigan win all the way out and win the Big Ten title? Michigan would get in automatically, and then you have an 11-1 Ohio State team. Should they get in over some other conference champions, depending upon how things shake up? So the playoff, to me, there's one path for the Big Ten, and it's Michigan or Ohio State. The winner of that game at the end of the year is going to go to the conference championship, and whoever comes out of the East is going to win the conference. All due respect to Wisconsin, but it's just not happening. Northwestern, maybe. Say if Northwestern knocks off Wisconsin, they'll probably end up representing the West. Maybe Iowa if they win out, but that's tough to tell. But nobody out of the West is going to win the conference. Certainly not going to the playoff. Michigan or Ohio State are the teams that are going to go to the playoff if they're coming out of the Big Ten. One of those 2 teams. It's a pretty straightforward path. You have to win out. Now, as far as the other teams are concerned, I think Alabama's going to win out. They're going to go undefeated and win the SEC. I don't see them losing. So you can already punch their ticket to go. You might get a second SEC team depending upon how Georgia plays. Sure, they beat Alabama in a conference title game. Or maybe a team like LSU. ACC, I think it's Clemson or bust. NC State undefeated right now. If they knock off Clemson, fine. But is NC State going to win out and finish undefeated in the ACC? I don't think so. So that leaves you with Bama, possibly Clemson, the Big Ten winner, and that last spot. Pac-12's not getting in. Big 12 might not even get in anymore. So do you bring a second Big Ten team or SEC team? That's the way I look at it right now. And to me, that's going to be absolutely fascinating. And it is going to start today with Michigan and Michigan State. Can the Big Ten maintain its argument for 2 teams in the playoff? I think they can. I think you could certainly see a situation only if Michigan wins out, wins the Big Ten title, finishes 12-1, having beaten an 11-1 Ohio State team, only loss being to Michigan. I think you can make an argument Michigan's in, and Ohio State could certainly get in as well. All right, we have Cody Stavenhagen coming up next after this break. He is of The Athletic, covers Michigan football. Looking forward to hearing from him. And then, of course, I'll give you my quick take on Rutgers, and I'll give you my picks near the end of the show. We'll take you up to 11:45, leading you up into the IMG broadcast of Rutgers football. They take on Northwestern today, and also Michigan. Michigan State, big one today as well. Make sure you keep it locked here. It's the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric, right here on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN.
Back here on the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Kosko with you. Please welcome in now Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic, covers Michigan football. Cody, thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah, no problem.
So I wanted to get right into it. Obviously, this is a huge game between Michigan and Michigan State, as it always is. It's one of Jim Harbaugh's bugaboos against Michigan State. Obviously, you go back a couple of years ago, the muff punt is the one that really sticks out. What do you think is different about this Michigan team this year going up against a Spartan team that is pretty good, but maybe not on the same level as the Wolverines this year?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to say. I think we'll figure out, today. I think Michigan has really come into this game with a ton of confidence, coming off the big win against Wisconsin. They're playing their best football of the year, a shutdown defense like normal. But I think the biggest difference in this team and other Jim Harbaugh teams at Michigan is just the quarterback play. Shea Patterson has come in, and he hasn't just, tore the roof off, but he's been very efficient. And he's allowed this Michigan offense to do some different things, have a little more confidence than they have in the past. Granted, he still hasn't won a big-time road game. The only one he's played was the opener against Notre Dame. Michigan was still sorting out a lot of problems in that one. So we'll see if kind of the improvement they've shown since then can carry over today in enemy territory in this big rivalry game.
Now, talk about Shea Patterson a little bit. He came in as a transfer. He seemed like he was going to start right away. He did. As you mentioned, there's been some struggles, but there's also been some highlights from Patterson. It seems like this is the best quarterback Harbaugh has had in his time at Michigan. Would you say that, and is he the type of quarterback that can actually help lead this Michigan team, particularly the offense, through the rest of the Big Ten, possibly the conference championship, and even into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think without a question he's the best quarterback Michigan has had under Harbaugh. And I think we've seen a lot of positive signs from Shea Patterson, and he does. It seems like he's improved, getting progressively better. He's only thrown one pick in the past 4 games, taking care of the ball well. He's not been asked to go out and throw for 300 yards a game, and I think even though Michigan's offense has got a little more creative, we're seeing some more spread sets. We saw a lot of read options that involved the quarterback run game last week. Shea Patterson he's just helped Michigan's offense develop a new identity, become a little bit more creative. All that said, this is a team that is still coached by Jim Harbaugh, still wants to use the run to set up the pass. So I think we're going to see a lot of that today and probably going forward. If this team can win the battle in the trenches, Karan Higdon, the running back, has really emerged into a workhorse. I think that'll be the identity of Michigan, but they're going to have to lean on Shea Patterson to make crucial plays. And kind of the question all year is, does Michigan still have another gear? Can this offense continue to take off? Can it become more of a pass-oriented attack? I don't think we're going to see any drastic transformation, but so far we really have seen this offense continue to become a little bit more molded in Shea Patterson's identity. So I think when you look down the stretch, Ohio State, the other big games to come, I totally think Shea Patterson is a deciding factor.
Now, I'm looking at Michigan's schedule. Obviously, the one that sticks out is the Notre Dame loss on the road from the first week of the season. But since then, they've won 6 in a row, pretty much dominated everybody with the exception to the Northwestern game on the road. But when you really break it down, Michigan hasn't played any world beaters aside from pretty much putting a beating on Wisconsin at home last week. Do you think that's a concern for people that outside of Michigan's program, or do you feel that the results on the schedule speak for themselves and this team is deserving of a top 10 ranking?
Yeah, I think people who have watched them closely might still be a little skeptical. They've had some slow starts, even in games they ended up winning by 3 scores. Obviously, they had to rally back from down 17-0 at Northwestern and kind of won that game in the final minute. I think they totally deserve a top 10 ranking right now, just based on their resume. And when the only losses to Notre Dame, and as sloppy as they looked in that game, they still lost by a touchdown. So yeah, this is a really good Michigan team. Is it still a tier below the Ohio States and Alabamas of the world? Most likely, but those are things that are going to play out, and we'll continue to see throughout the next 3 weeks. I don't think this is a perfect Michigan team, but kind of as I've already said, they've just looked progressively better. So if you can continue that trend, then maybe by the end of the season, we're having a little bit of a different conversation.
Now, looking around the Big Ten, obviously it's Ohio State. They're the big dog right now in the Big Ten. You look at the Western Division with the loss for Wisconsin. Now Northwestern seems like they're on top at the moment. So I'm looking at the Big Ten. Ohio State, basically the favorite at this point. If Michigan keeps winning, obviously they have a tough game. They have a tough game today, tough game against Penn State. So it's the gauntlet's not done yet. But when you look at this Big Ten and the conference as a whole, do you find that Ohio State is the most automatic playoff team, or you think if Michigan does end up winning out, they should get in automatically as well?
I think if Michigan wins out, that involves beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten. So I think Michigan would definitely crack a playoff spot. But the goal here for Michigan is to beat Michigan State, beat Penn State, 2 games you're going to be favored in, and then kind of give yourself a puncher's chance going into that final week in Columbus, where I'm sure the Buckeyes will most likely be favored. But that's a weird game. Weird things can happen. And if you win that one, yeah, I definitely think it's probably you're playing for a Big Ten title spot. You're playing for a college football playoff spot.
Now, I had this discussion with another reporter the other week. The Big Ten itself is very weird since they realigned it to based on the geographical. You have the East Division, but it's so stacked because you have teams like Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State. And basically, 4 of the 5 best teams in the conference are all in one division. Do you foresee at any point the Big Ten eventually realigning itself again to go back to divisions like Leaders and Legends or something along those lines where they have a more competitive balance between these divisions? If you look at the West, Nebraska's obviously off to a bad start this year. Minnesota's not too good this year, and neither is Illinois. So, I mean, do you find that there's a very big imbalance within the Big Ten Conference?
I mean, obviously there's kind of an imbalance right now. In terms of how you go about fixing that, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I would imagine the Big Ten League office is kind of crossing its fingers that Scott Frost gets Nebraska off the ground and PJ Fleck continues to improve Minnesota, and then maybe there's even some kind of day where Illinois starts playing better football. I think you kind of hope that maybe this will sort itself out organically, but I mean, just because when you change divisions, you tweak things that messes with schedules. That's already kind of messed up Michigan's home and road schedule going forward, where they're playing at Ohio State, at Michigan State, kind of every other year. So I don't know exactly what the solution will be, but yeah, there's definitely a pretty striking imbalance right now. We'll see if that's something that changes in the years to come.
When you look around the college football landscape, the Big Ten obviously dominates your area of expertise because of a team like Michigan. Obviously, you have the big boys in Ohio State and Penn State, Michigan State. But when I look around college football, I see Alabama, and then I see everybody else. I would imagine you kind of see it the same way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Ohio State team is really good. I might put them as a close 2, but I mean, Alabama is playing football right now that yeah, it's another level. And you can kind of write them in every week right now. I mean, even Ohio State has had a scare at Penn State this year. And that's just the program Nick Saban's built. It's kind of every year you pencil Alabama in at number 1, and then you see what happens. And right now, Alabama's playing as well as it has in the entire Saban era. They have a Heisman candidate at quarterback. I mean, it seems like the gap is just getting wider and wider.
We're talking with Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic, covers Michigan football. You can follow him on Twitter at Cody Stavenhagen. Cody, I'm looking at the ACC as well, just to kind of keep going around the horn a little bit. It's Clemson, again, it's Clemson and everybody else. The ACC not up to speed with the other conferences this year, but they have an interesting matchup with NC State. When you look at a Clemson team that's continually made the playoff in years past, and you look at Alabama that's also made the playoff in years past, it seems like the SEC is the conference that is the only conference that gets 2 teams in. If Clemson should lose, could you see a scenario where the ACC is possibly left out of the playoff and thus opening the door for possibly 2 Big Ten teams or 2 SEC teams?
Yeah, it's tough to know exactly until it kind of comes down to it and you look at the schedules, you look at the record, but I would imagine the only way an ACC team gets in is if Clemson wins their conference and most likely wins out. I think we kind of tend to forget about Clemson a little bit, at least nationally or at least in Big Ten country. But Clemson, Dabo Swinney has built one heck of a program. They've been consistent. They've been right in that conversation with Alabama, Ohio State. But it's still the ACC. It doesn't have that type of national respect. Clemson, for whatever reason, still isn't really that brand that the committee may or may not favor. I think you look at it, just looking at the schedules, I think 2 SEC teams could definitely get in over Clemson or an ACC team. Maybe even 2 Big Ten teams. That's a little bit more. It would just kind of depend how things shake out, how they look. But I think that's totally within the realm of possibility.
We'll circle around to the Big Ten, back to the Big Ten right here. I know you spend most of your time with Michigan, but I'm actually a Rutgers alum, and we carry Rutgers football down here. What do you think the biggest issue is from an outsider's perspective? Because obviously this is a team under Chris Ash that he has the credentials as a defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, obviously under Urban Meyer at Ohio State. They went from 2 wins to 4 wins in year 2. Now year 3, the depth has been exposed. They lost some players in the offseason to another, off the field scandal, and now they're in the basement once again. They're the butt of pretty much every joke nationally. What do you think the biggest issue is with a program like Rutgers, where they've had success in the past, and then upon their initial joining of the Big Ten, they were successful and they were improving the past couple of years? Where do you think that you have to pinpoint the biggest issue for that squad?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Rutgers by any means, but just kind of generally speaking, it's so hard to be a program like that. A little bit of a smaller school, at least from a football standpoint. You're not going to be able to recruit with the heavyweights. So when you have a couple of years' success, you kind of have to bank on the fact that you can build on that. So that means you have to bring in the right players. You can't miss on many recruits. And it seems like Rutgers maybe had that happen, had some guys leave the program. Depth is always a huge thing that can kind of create this divide and gap between programs. And so it's hard because a down year can really kill your momentum. It can stifle anything you have going into recruiting. It just makes it harder to build back up, really be as a stable winning football team. So when you're looking at a situation like this, I mean, you kind of have to think toward the future. It's almost like a baseball team investing in its farm system. You really have to scout and hit the recruiting trail and try to bring in a couple of talented guys who maybe can change the narrative around your program.
Cody Stavenhagen with us from The Athletic, covers Michigan football. Cody, I'll leave you here with this one. Again, circling back to the Michigan State game, it's the big one of the day. It's the one everybody's looking out for. Biggest keys for Michigan today to take out Michigan State, because, again, I'll say it again, Jim Harbaugh, he just can't beat Michigan State and he can't beat Ohio State. Do you think today's the day where he finally gets past Sparty and then he's moving on to Penn State and Ohio State?
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's 1-2 in his career against Michigan State. The one win was a couple of years ago when Michigan State had a huge down year. I think one of the keys to this battle in the trenches, we're looking at some winds. It might be rainy. It's going to be a physical game. It's going to be one of those rivalry games where just anything can happen. But if Michigan can get some push on Michigan State's front seven, control the clock, I think that's going to vote in their favor. And then you've got to take care of the ball. I think you need Shea Patterson to continue to be accurate, be efficient, don't turn the football over. If you do those things, I think Michigan is clearly the more talented team today. It's kind of a matter of not shooting yourself in the foot and executing a lot like you did last week against Wisconsin.
Cody Stavenhagen with us. Appreciate the time as always. You can catch his work on The Athletic. Covers Michigan football. So follow him on Twitter at Cody Stavenhagen. Cody, thanks for joining me this morning, and we'll see what Michigan can do today.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That was Cody Stavenhagen. Again, follow him on Twitter at Cody Stavenhagen. Catch his work on The Athletic. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, picks around the corner right here on the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric, right here, 97.3 ESPN.
This is the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN.
Welcome back to the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric. Nick Kosko with you. A few more minutes to go, about 5 more. Lead you up to Rutgers football. Chris Carlin, Ray Lucas have a call for you today as they take on Northwestern. It's Rutgers' homecoming game. That usually means disaster for the Scarlet Knights. They never play. It's weird. They always play well in a blackout game. Not last week. I don't even want to talk about it. Actually, that was 2 weeks ago, so I take that back. But they never play well on homecoming. They beat Kansas the one year. Other than that, never good. All I recall is I go back to my freshman year of college back in 2014, where they were pretty solid, 8-5 overall, won the bowl game, 3-5 in the Big Ten, but they got absolutely destroyed on a very crappy and rainy day in Piscataway to Wisconsin. Back in those were the days of Melvin Gordon and Corey Clement in the backfield for Wisconsin. So you can imagine how that looked against the Rutgers defense. Gordon was so good in the first half they took him out. Clement took the entire second half. Game was way out of hand, and I just remember Clement taking one down the sideline as I left after the third quarter. I remember him in the third quarter taking one down the sideline, broke about 5 tackles within 5 yards. And I'm thinking to myself, how does a man that big, and mind you, Clement looked huge in college. Not that he isn't big now, but when you look at him as a college back, he looks so much bigger than Melvin Gordon in college. I'm thinking to myself, my God, how does a big guy like that run that fast? And there you go. Corey Clement eventually picked up by the Eagles. Big game in the Super Bowl last year. Big contributor. It's amazing. Wisconsin recruits Jersey players better than Rutgers right now. Corey Clement, Jonathan Taylor right now. Just not looking good for Rutgers. And just to comment on them real quick before I get into my picks for today. It's awful to watch. I said this last week. It's just you can't sugarcoat it, and you can't say anything different because after a terrible loss to Maryland Maryland of all teams, 34-7 last week on the road, and thank God it was on the road. Otherwise, you would have seen 10 people in Piscataway. You might actually get decent attendance to start the game today because it is homecoming. All the alums are back. But I'll tell you what, right now, once that first quarter's over and they're down 21-0 to Northwestern, see ya. They're going back to the tailgates in the parking lot. It's just so bad, and it's also going to be a crappy day today, weather-wise. So I'll take my attendance comment back. It might not actually be that good. I don't know what else to say other than this team is god-awful. They cannot compete. And you really have to question the future of the program and of Chris Ash. Again, I said it last week, I like Ash. But you have to question it, especially if these decommitments start coming in one after another. The recruiting class is going to be bare next year, and you're going to have nothing to build upon this year. It can possibly get real ugly real fast. And as an alum, person who's covered the program for the last 3-4 years, I would hate to see that. I really would. It's beyond depressing. All right, picks today. Michigan State, Michigan on the road. You know what? I'm known as the kiss of death around my comrades when I make picks, especially with my good buddy Ryan Moran, former Rutgers colleague. Every time he asks me for a pick, I usually give him one, but it's only when he asks me. When he asks me for a pick and I give it to him, it's always the opposite. I don't know why. Maybe he rubs me the wrong way, and maybe I subconsciously give him the wrong pick. I'm not really sure about that. But I am going to go with Michigan today. I like Shea Patterson. That Michigan is rolling right now. Again, this is a hurdle that Jim Harbaugh has to get over. Beat Michigan State. Beat Ohio State. I think this is the year it finally starts clicking for Jim Harbaugh in all phases. Give me Michigan over Michigan State in a close one. It's on the road in East Lansing, so I expect a good one at noon. NC State, Clemson. I'm going to stick with Clemson because they're at home. And for some reason, I know Syracuse gave them a run for their money a couple weeks ago. Lawrence is a really nice freshman quarterback for Clemson. They're still a great football team. Great chance to get to the playoff. NC State is deserving of their 16th or of their 16 ranking. They're within the top 20. I like NC State a lot. I like Finley at the quarterback position as well. But give me Clemson at home. So I'm picking the favorites so far. So Michigan over Michigan State, Clemson over NC State. The other game I'd look at going down to the SEC, Mississippi State on the road at LSU. I picked Georgia over LSU last week. I was so confident in that, and then LSU destroyed them. I still like Jake Fromm at quarterback, by the way, for Georgia. LSU, with that win last week, they're the real deal, and they're at home again against Mississippi State. Not a huge Mississippi State fan right now, so I'm going to stick with LSU. I'm picking all the favorites today. LSU over Mississippi State at home in Death Valley. Tigers have a legit shot at the college football playoff. I think the SEC can get two teams in. LSU could be one of them, or they can win it outright. They seem for real this year. So give me the favorites today: Michigan over Michigan State, Clemson over NC State, and LSU over Mississippi State. And of course, I got to give you my Rutgers pick. You know where I'm going with this. They're going to lose. Northwestern's going to win this one today. No, I can't. I can't take it. You know what's going to stink? The next few weeks, that's the hard part of the schedule for Rutgers. Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State at the end of the year, Wisconsin. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a rough few weeks. I'll just say Rutgers loses, and then I'll wait to see the score in those games. I'll say today Northwestern 38, Rutgers 7. That seemed okay. I think I'll go with that. Oh, it's not going to be good. Happy homecoming, Rutgers. Thanks to Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic for joining me today. Thank you for all of you listening. Rutgers football is next. I'm Nick Kosko saying so long. College football, Canada Kickoff, Calvi Electric, right here, 97.3 ESPN.